What's up, you nerdlets? It's Alyssa Violet, back here with the Goob Gang, and another spicy combo. Now, you know how when I always say that Burst Classic is a single spin meta, which it basically is because 95% of all of the viable combos are right spin? There's this is the one combo that isn't, and before you hate me for ruining Burst Classic forever, this is it. It's Dragoon F Polish Absorb. I actually I'm one of the people who up-designed Burst Classic, and I purposefully left the Dragoons in there just because I figured, oh, these things weigh like 6 grams, they're super recoily, they burst very easily, even though they are left spin, they're not going to be a huge problem. And I'm making this combo out to be pretty great, and it's good, but it's not a huge problem that left spin generally is in Burst, just because it's pretty light, and despite having some good life after death, it is still pretty easy to KO or burst, even with opposite spin attack, just because of the layer having so much recoil because of the plastic gen design. So up first, Dragoon F. There's the technically four left spin layers in Burst Classic are Dragoon S and Dragoon F, both the Hasbro and Takara Tomy versions. Aside from Eternal S, which shows potential for Hasbro players, Dragoon F and Dragoon S don't have much of a presence in Hasbro just because they don't have a ton of good opposite spin drivers like Takara Tomy does. Dragoon F is the better of the two Takara Tomy Dragoons, just because it bursts less, it has a slightly less recoily and aggressive design, making it better for left spin. It's still pretty light though, I don't think it weighs more than 7 or 8 grams at most. So it's relatively light even for a Burst Classic layer. The disc is Polish. Polish is only really usable on opposite spin just because it tends to scrape when it's in same spin, and its stamina also isn't too great, but it also transitions really well into Destroy and Absorb, which are the two viable Dragoon combos. Both transition pretty well into Polish, so it's the best disc to use with Dragoon. If you're planning on using Eternal, Yale is probably better though. And then the driver is Absorb. Shindog actually recommended Absorb to me. Prior to this, I was only using Dragoon S, Yale Eternal, and Dragoon S Polish Destroy. And then he not only mentioned that Dragoon F is better than Dragoon S and convinced me to buy it, he also mentioned that, oh, Absorb is also useful in this format because unlike with the heavier Chozy layers it was first released with, it doesn't go crazy and self-KO when you launch it a bit harder with the lighter classic layers. It also has a better same spin performance than either Destroy or Eternal does. So it's basically Revolve plus Eternal. It's basically Eternal S. This is basically the Takara Tomy version of Dragoon F Polish Eternal S, because we don't know how Hasbro is going to handle Absorb just yet. But it's also got a decent amount of same spin stamina, so it will outspin Dragoon Eternal and Dragoon Destroy, assuming that you don't burst versus them, which I feel like in a Dragoon versus Dragoon match would be pretty likely, but I've never actually tested that. Actually can test it during this video, or do a quick mock battle between them. So let's test this thing out, see how good it actually is. Alright, so up first I'm going to be testing Dragoon F Polish Absorb versus Wyvern Heavy Revolve, just to show a stamina combo that it can outspin. this Dragoon by like 1 rotation, but that's how it's gonna win all of its battles, so... It's by a little more than 1 rotation. 2-0 Dragoon. That was a tie. Oh, Wyvern actually won that one. Oh. Yeah, 3-0 Dragoon takes just because Polish Absorb has so much better life after death than Heavy Revolve. So 2 of the combos that I have found safely counter it, while even though the same spin stamina isn't too great. One is Neptune Yell Eternal. I'll show that off now. That's 1-0 for Neptune. Neptune. And 3-0 Neptune. This can also work with things like Death Scyther or Acid Anubis or Guardian Kirbyus, but I found that even if you do use those, because they have more stamina, they're a bit more applicable in same spin matchups. Dragoon still has a chance of bursting you if the Dragoon user launches hard enough, though they also have a chance of self-bursting. So it's kind of a trade-off, but Neptune is not going to burst against Dragoon pretty much whatsoever, because it's really difficult to burst. This also works with Bearing, which I think, and I feel like Neptune's one of the only layers that can actually use Takaratomi Bearing to its best effect in Classic, just because it is pretty difficult to burst. But I still would not feel comfortable using Neptune on Bearing against another right spin opponent in most cases. And since I'm gonna spare you the Neptune Bearing versus Dragoon Absorb matchup, because it's gonna end exactly the same way that Neptune Eternal did, I'm just gonna show you Dragoon Absorb versus Valtyrek V2 Knuckle Extreme, just to show that it is pretty easy to KO and burst with an attack type, even if you do weak launch it. That was overall balanced, so let's see what happens. So yeah, technically that was V2's KO because it bounced off the out. It sounds like I'm making it up, but it's an actual ruling. Also cause attack types to self-burst. I'm not sure if that first one was a wall bounce, but the second one was like a burst KO at the same time. 3-1. It can get some lucky outspins if you mess up your sliding shoot, but just due to like the recoiliness of Dragoon F and the lightweight, and also Absorb not being too great at KO defense, Victory Valkyrie, or pretty much any KO attacker, should take this match pretty easily. Alright, so overall, Dragoon F Polish Absorb, it's kind of like a weird niche counter or combo that can like safely counter right spin, defense, and orbit, and like anything that's beneath Polish Absorb on the opposite spin matchup list from that other video I made like a few months ago. But yeah, it's very much like Medio El Drago from MFB in the sense that it'll just randomly burst versus something sometimes. And it's pretty easy to KO just because it has so much recoil, it's pretty light, has bad KO defense. So overall, like, while it's definitely something to watch out for, it's just gonna be a nuisance where it's like, oh, I forgot this was a thing, and then you lose to it in an unwinnable matchup. But I really don't think it's very threatening to the balance of Burst Classic in general, and it's overall a pretty good combo. So this wraps it up for like Season 1 of Burst Classic spicy combos so far. Like, I have, I want to say 12 or 16 combos in my starting lineup for this tournament coming up that I'm going to soon, because I'm recording these before I go to the tournament. But if anything new pops up between now and then, I'll be sure to do a video on it after I like figure out how it works and test it out for myself. But this is all the super interesting stuff I'd really want to push out to my viewers before Burst Classic develops further. So I hope you enjoyed this like series of 4 videos so far, and I hope to do some more later. I'll see you guys next time. Dragoon out.